March 15, 2024, 4:52 a.m. The silence shattered. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the crisp morning air, followed by the high-pitched screams of children. Inside the $3.2 million estate, a family dinner that had started hours earlier as a celebration of reconciliation had spiraled into something far more sinister. In the master bedroom, Thomas Reynolds lay unconscious, blood seeping from a head wound. 6-year-old twins Sophia and Samuel huddled in their shared bathroom, the door locked, their small hands pressed against their ears to block out the sounds of their former nanny's rage. Downstairs, Sarah Reynolds, still in her evening dress from the dinner, faced Catherine Morris, the woman who had once been their family's rock, now transformed by obsession into something unrecognizable. Catherine stood in the kitchen, her usually pristine appearance now disheveled, her dark hair wild around her face. The knife in her hand caught the light from the open refrigerator, its door still ajar from when Sarah had reached for a late-night drink. On the marble counter lay Sarah's phone, its screen illuminated with a half-typed 911 call. "You were never here." Catherine's voice trembled with a mixture of fury and desperation. "You were never here for any of them. I was here. I made their lunches, I kissed their scrapes better, I listened to Thomas's struggles, I loved them, I loved him." The knife in her hand shook with each word. They were supposed to be mine. 5:03 a.m. A neighbor's security camera captured the faint echo of more breaking glass, followed by absolute silence. By the time first responders arrived at 5:17 a.m., the scene inside the Reynolds estate would forever change the face of Oak Valley's pristine facade. But to understand how Catherine Morris, a highly recommended nanny with 15 years of experience and impeccable references, transformed from trusted caregiver to obsessed killer, we must return to September 23, 2023. On that autumn morning, Sarah Reynolds posted an ad seeking an experienced, mature nanny for twins on an upscale childcare website. Among the dozens of responses, Catherine stood out immediately. Her application would be the first step in a carefully orchestrated path to destruction that would unfold over the next 6 months. This is the story of how a family's search for stability invited in their worst nightmare, how a moment of weakness evolved into an obsession, and how the lines between professional care and personal desire blurred until they dissolved completely in blood. Oak Valley's newest power couple had mastered the art of making success look effortless. Thomas Reynolds, at 45, commanded respect in Silicon Valley's competitive tech landscape as the CEO of Quantum Securities, a cybersecurity firm protecting some of the world's largest corporations. His corner office, overlooking the Sierra Nevada mountains, spoke of achievement, but it was the framed artwork from his twins, stick figure drawings and finger paintings that drew visitors' attention. Thomas's dedication to his role as father often surprised his colleagues. Despite managing a company with over 500 employees, he never missed a school performance or a parent-teacher conference. Each morning, before heading to the office, he made pancakes with Sophia and Samuel, carefully crafting them into shapes the 6-year-olds requested. Dinosaurs for Samuel, butterflies for Sophia. These morning rituals became even more precious as Sarah's career began to soar. Sarah Reynolds, at 42, was experiencing what Hollywood calls a late bloom. After years of small roles in cable dramas, her portrayal of a complex anti-hero in the streaming series Dark Waters caught the industry's attention. By fall 2023, she was filming the show's second season, her schedule growing increasingly demanding. Her absence from home stretched from days to weeks, then to months as the show's popularity exploded. The Reynolds twins, Sophia and Samuel, inherited their parents' charisma and drive. At Oak Valley Academy, where tuition rivaled some colleges, they stood out even among other privileged children. Sophia, older by 8 minutes, showed an early talent for mathematics that delighted Thomas. Samuel, the more artistic of the pair, had inherited his mother's dramatic flair, turning every show and tell into a theatrical performance. Their Mediterranean estate at 1154 Cypress Lane represented everything the Reynolds had achieved. The 8,500-square-foot home, with its sweeping views and resort-style pool, hosted charity events and industry parties where Silicon Valley elite mingled with Hollywood stars. Yet behind the impressive facade, the demands of managing two high-powered careers while raising twins began to show its strain. October 2023 marked a turning point. Sarah landed a leading role in Martin Scorsese's latest project, requiring 3 months of filming in New Zealand. The timing couldn't have been worse. The twins had just started first grade, and Thomas was overseeing a major company expansion. The perfectly choreographed dance of their family life needed adjustment, and quickly. "We just need someone mature, someone who understands the demands of our lifestyle," Sarah explained during a rare family dinner in early October. "The twins need stability while I'm away." Thomas agreed, though something in his expression suggested concern about the increasing time his wife spent away from home. Their search for childcare would lead them to Catherine Morris. Her resume arrived in an elegant email on October 15, 2023, the kind of correspondence that spoke of professionalism and experience. At 33, she brought the maturity they sought, along with an impressive list of references from other high-profile families. Her initial interview would paint a picture of the perfect solution to their increasingly complex family dynamics. But Catherine Morris wasn't just applying for a job. She was auditioning for a role she'd spend the next 5 months perfecting, one that would ultimately tear the Reynolds family apart. October 15, 2023. Catherine Morris sat in her car outside the Reynolds estate, reviewing her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon, her navy blazer and pearl earrings carefully chosen to project the perfect blend of sophistication and approachability. At 33, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent years in the homes of the wealthy, understanding their needs often before they did themselves. The interview was set for 2 p.m. She arrived at 1:45, early enough to be punctual, but not so early as to appear desperate. As she walked up the curved driveway, her heels clicking softly against the stamped concrete, Catherine noted every detail. The security cameras, the gardener trimming roses, the children's bikes carefully stored in the 3-car garage. Each observation would prove useful in the months to come. Sarah Reynolds opened the door herself, still in makeup from a morning of publicity shots. The actress's presence filled the doorway with the kind of natural charisma that translated perfectly to screen. "Catherine, please come in. I'm Sarah, and this is exactly the kind of punctuality we need in this house." The warmth in her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, a detail Catherine filed away carefully. The formal living room where they sat felt more like a magazine spread than a lived-in space. Catherine's resume lay on the glass coffee table between them, her 15 years of experience laid out in pristine chronological order. Each reference had been meticulously curated: 3 years with a Supreme Court justice's family in Washington, 4 years with a Silicon Valley pioneer, 2 years with a Manhattan hedge fund manager. "Your experience is impressive," Sarah noted, scanning the document. "But what really interests me is your degree in child psychology. How does that inform your approach to childcare?" Catherine's response was practiced yet genuine. Children from high-achieving families face unique challenges. They need someone who understands the delicate balance between maintaining their parents' standards and allowing them to simply be kids. She paused, then added with careful empathy, "Especially when their parent says, 'Success sometimes keeps them away from home.'" The subtle flash of guilt across Sarah's face told Catherine she'd struck the right note. Thomas Reynolds joined them 30 minutes into the interview, having stepped away from a board meeting. His presence changed the room's dynamic instantly. At 45, he carried success with an unconscious grace, his rolled-up sleeves and loosened tie suggesting a man who prioritized family over corporate polish. Catherine noticed the way his eyes sought Sarah's first, the small smile they shared, the gentle squeeze of his wife's shoulder as he sat down. The twins burst in shortly after, fresh from their day at Oak Valley Academy. Sophia and Samuel, with their father's dark hair and their mother's expressive eyes, approached Catherine with the direct curiosity of 6-year-olds. Within minutes, she had them engaged in conversation about their day, demonstrating the easy rapport with children that had made her so successful in her field. "What made you choose professional childcare?" Thomas asked, watching his children interact with Catherine. "I believe in being part of something meaningful," she replied, her gaze steady. Supporting families like yours. Families balancing exceptional achievements with raising the next generation. That's more than a job. It's a calling. By the end of the 2-hour interview, Catherine had painted a portrait of herself as the perfect solution to the Reynolds' increasingly complex needs. Her references checked out impeccably. Her background screening came back spotless. Her salary requirements were substantial but reasonable for someone of her experience. What no background check could reveal was the way Catherine's eyes lingered on family photos as she left, or how carefully she noted the casual intimacy between Thomas and Sarah, how she measured herself against Sarah's elegant presence, how she began, even then, to imagine herself fitting into the spaces Sarah's career would leave behind. On October 20th, 2023, Catherine Morris accepted the position as the Reynolds family's nanny. Within a week, she would have her own set of house keys. Within a month, she would know every detail of their daily routines. And within 3 months, she would begin to believe that her role in the family could become something far more permanent than anyone had intended. The perfect facade she had constructed was about to become the foundation for an obsession that would destroy everything in its path. By November 2023, Catherine Morris had transformed the Reynolds household with an efficiency that seemed almost magical. Her day began at 6:30 a.m., arriving before the twins woke, her dark SUV pulling into the curved driveway just as dawn broke over the Sierra Nevadas. She moved through the house with quiet purpose, starting the coffee maker moments before Thomas came downstairs, having already memorized how he liked his morning brew. Strong, black, with a hint of cinnamon. Sarah's increasingly frequent absences for dark waters created the perfect void for Catherine to fill. When Sarah flew to New Zealand on November 12th for her 3-month filming commitment, Catherine stepped seamlessly into the role of household manager. She didn't just handle the twins' schedules, she anticipated needs the family hadn't even recognized. "You're a lifesaver," Thomas said one evening in late November, finding a fresh shirt pressed and ready after a coffee spill before an important video call. Catherine had noticed his tendency to gesture while speaking, how it sometimes led to minor accidents. She'd started keeping a spare shirt ready, just in case. "I don't know how we managed before you." The twins flourished under her care. Sophia's math homework was always completed with enthusiasm, Catherine having developed special games to make multiplication tables exciting. Samuel's artistic streak found new expression through the craft projects she planned, their creations proudly displayed in Thomas's home office. Every success was documented in photos sent to Sarah's phone, carefully staged glimpses of the perfect life continuing in her absence. But beneath the surface of this domestic harmony, subtle shifts were taking place. Catherine began staying later than necessary, and had lingering over dinner preparation when she knew Thomas would be home early. Her professional attire gradually evolved to echo Sarah's style. Elegant sundresses, designer jeans, subtle jewelry that caught the light just so. She studied the family photos on the walls, noting how Sarah held herself, the way she smiled, the careful tilt of her head in candid shots. By early December, Catherine had established herself as indispensable. She was there when Samuel came down with a fever, spending the night in the guest room to monitor his temperature. She remembered that Sophia was allergic to strawberries and Thomas preferred his chicken grilled rather than baked. Every detail was filed away, every preference noted and accommodated. December 15th marked a subtle but significant shift. Sarah missed the twins' holiday concert at Oak Valley Academy, caught in reshoots that couldn't be rescheduled. Catherine sat beside Thomas in the school auditorium, beaming with genuine pride as Sophia and Samuel performed. A parent behind them whispered, "They make such a lovely family." Catherine didn't correct the assumption. That evening, as the twins excitedly recounted their performance over hot chocolate, Catherine watched Thomas checking his phone, waiting for Sarah's call. The slight downward turn of his mouth when it didn't come, the way his shoulders tensed ever so slightly, none of it escaped her notice. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, just for a moment, offering comfort that was both professional and somehow intimate. "They were wonderful tonight," she said softly. "You should be proud." The look Thomas gave her then, grateful, warm, perhaps a touch too lingering, would replay in her mind countless times in the weeks to come. It was a moment that, in Catherine's carefully constructed reality, held possibilities. Possibilities that would soon begin to consume her thoughts, reshaping her role in the Reynolds family into something far more dangerous than anyone could have anticipated. As Christmas approached, Catherine's private journal entries, later discovered by investigators, showed the first clear signs of her growing obsession. "He deserves someone who's here," she wrote on December 20th. "Someone who understands what he needs. Someone like me." The perfect facade was beginning to crack, but only in the privacy of her thoughts. On the surface, Catherine Morris remained the consummate professional, the ideal nanny, the answered prayer for a family stretched thin by success. No one noticed how she'd begun to linger over Thomas's photos or how her eyes hardened when Sarah's name was mentioned. No one saw the danger building behind her perfect smile. Not yet. January 2024 arrived with a record-breaking cold snap in Oak Valley. As temperatures dropped outside, the atmosphere inside the Reynolds estate grew increasingly charged with unspoken tension. Sarah's absence, now stretching into its third month, had left a void that Catherine had methodically filled with her presence. The nights were the most dangerous. After the twins were asleep, the large house grew quiet, except for the soft hum of the heating system and the occasional ping of Thomas's laptop as he worked late in his study. Catherine found reasons to stay, organizing the next day's schedule, preparing lessons for the twins, sorting through the endless details that kept the household running smoothly. On January 12th, everything changed. Thomas sat in his study, reviewing quarterly reports, when Catherine brought him his usual evening tea. She had learned his habits: chamomile with honey after 9 p.m., the cup warmed beforehand so the tea would stay hot longer. As she set down the cup, she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the slight furrow between his brows. "Sarah called earlier," he said, not looking up. "She's extending her stay another 3 weeks. The director wants to reshape her character's arc." Catherine's hand lingered on the desk. "The twins will be disappointed. They were counting on her being here for their science fair next week." "They're used to it by now," Thomas replied, his voice carrying an edge of bitterness he usually kept carefully hidden. He ran a hand through his dark hair, displacing its usual neat appearance. "Sometimes I wonder if we're all just getting too used to it." Something in his voice, vulnerability perhaps, or resignation, made Catherine break her carefully maintained professional boundaries. She perched on the edge of his desk, close enough that her perfume, the same brand Sarah wore, drifted between them. "You're doing an amazing job with them, Thomas," she said softly. "I see it every day. The way Sophia lights up when you help with her math, how Samuel shows you every new drawing. They adore you." Thomas looked up then, meeting her eyes. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. "Catherine," he started, but she was already moving closer, her hand finding his on the desk. "You deserve someone who sees you," she whispered. "Someone who's here." The kiss, when it came, held all the intensity of months of careful observation, of studied movements and calculated closeness. For a moment, Thomas responded, caught in a web of loneliness and Catherine's carefully crafted allure. But it was the framed family photo on his desk, Sarah and the twins laughing at the beach last summer, that broke the spell. Thomas pulled away abruptly, standing so quickly his chair rolled back against the wall. "This can't happen," he said, his voice rough. "Catherine, I'm sorry if I've given you any impression, but this was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It can't happen again." Catherine composed herself with practiced grace, but something had shifted in her eyes, a hardening, a determination that should have served as a warning. "Of course," she said smoothly, standing. "I apologize for my unprofessional behavior. It won't happen again." But as she left the study, her calm exterior masked a growing storm. In her mind, that brief kiss had confirmed everything she'd spent months convincing herself of, that she and Thomas belonged together, that Sarah was the only obstacle to their happiness, that the perfect family she'd observed so carefully could be hers. That night, in her apartment 10 minutes from the Reynolds estate, Catherine began to plan. The kiss wasn't the end of something, as Thomas intended. In her increasingly distorted reality, it was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, she would maintain her professional demeanor perfectly. No one would notice the slight changes. How she began to dress more like Sarah, how her casual touches of Thomas lingered just a fraction too long, how her eyes tracked his movements with an intensity that went beyond appropriate concern. The facade was cracking, but only Catherine knew how deep those cracks went, or how dangerous they would become. Late January 2024 marked the beginning of Catherine Morris's transformation from trusted nanny to something far more sinister. The change was subtle at first, like hairline cracks in fine china, barely visible but compromising the entire structure. Following the kiss in Thomas's study, Catherine maintained an outward facade of professional composure that was almost too perfect. She arrived each morning at exactly 6:30 a.m., performed her duties with mechanical precision, and left promptly at 8 p.m. But what the Reynolds family couldn't see were her activities in the hours between departing their home and returning the next day. Her apartment, a modern one-bedroom in a luxury complex 10 minutes from the Reynolds estate, had slowly transformed into a shrine to her obsession. The spare bedroom, once her home office, now held detailed notebooks documenting every aspect of the Reynolds family life. Calendar printouts tracked Sarah's shooting schedule. Photographs of Thomas, some taken secretly during family events, others carefully clipped from company newsletters, covered one wall entirely. January 25th, Catherine began logging Sarah's calls home, noting their duration and Thomas's mood afterward. "He barely smiled during their video call today," she wrote in her journal. "She doesn't understand him like I do. She doesn't see how the distance is killing him inside." By early February, her fixation intensified. She created a fake Instagram account under the name Sarah Reynolds Updates and began posting about Sarah's supposed indiscretions on set. Sources say leading actress gets cozy with co-star during late-night filming, one post read, accompanied by an innocuous photo of Sarah laughing with her male co-star during a coffee break. February 10th, Catherine started accidentally leaving personal items around the house, her scarf draped over a chair in Thomas's study, her favorite coffee mug in the kitchen cabinet next to his. Small markers of domesticity that, in her increasingly distorted reality, made the house feel more like her home. The twins, innocent pawns in her elaborate game, became unwitting participants in her fantasy. She began asking them to call her Cat instead of Miss Morris, a nickname that felt more familial, more permanent. During their art sessions, she encouraged them to draw our family, subtly positioning herself in the narrative while Sarah remained conspicuously absent from their pictures. February 15th brought news that would accelerate Catherine's unraveling. Sarah called to announce she'd been offered a leading role in another prestigious project, one that would begin immediately after her current filming concluded. More months away. More time for Catherine to embed herself deeper into the fabric of Reynolds' family life. That evening, after Thomas shared the news, Catherine watched him from the kitchen as he sat with the twins, explaining once again why Mommy wouldn't be home as soon as promised. She saw the resignation in his posture, heard the forced cheerfulness in his voice. In her mind, she was witnessing the slow death of a marriage, not understanding that she was actually observing the strength of family bonds bending but not breaking under pressure. "Daddy," Sophia had asked, her small voice wavering, "does Mommy not want to live with us anymore?" The question hung in the air like poison. Catherine held her breath, waiting for Thomas's response, her hand gripping the kitchen counter so hard her knuckles turned white. "No, sweetheart," Thomas replied firmly, gathering both twins into his arms. "Mommy loves us very much. She's just doing her job like I do mine. We're still a family, no matter how far apart we are." Catherine's journal entry that night revealed the depths of her delusion. "He's protecting them, but I can see the truth. This family is falling apart, and I'm the only one who can put it back together. I can be what they need. What he needs. Sarah's made her choice, her career over her family. Soon they'll all see that I'm the better choice. I'm here. I've always been here." As February drew to a close, Catherine's behavior grew increasingly bold. She began forgetting to send Sarah the daily updates about the twins. She started suggesting to Thomas that perhaps the children needed therapy to deal with their mother's absence, positioning herself as the stable, constant maternal figure in their lives. But it was her next move that would set in motion the events leading to that fatal March night. On February 28th, Catherine did something that crossed a line from which there would be no return. She used her access to the house to make a copy of Sarah's personal photos from Thomas's laptop. Intimate family moments, private conversations, everything that proved the Reynolds had once been happy without her. She would use these to craft her masterpiece of manipulation, never realizing she was actually constructing her own undoing. Early March 2024 brought a shift in the atmosphere of the Reynolds estate as palpable as the changing season. Sarah Reynolds was finally returning home, her extended filming schedule in New Zealand complete. The news should have brought joy to the household. Instead, it triggered a countdown to catastrophe. March 1st, Catherine arrived at work to find Thomas humming as he made breakfast for the twins. The reason for his improved mood became clear when she spotted the flight confirmation email open on his laptop, Sarah's return ticket for March 14th. "The children must be excited," Catherine said, her voice maintaining its professional warmth while her hands shook slightly as she arranged the twins' lunchboxes. "It's been so long since they've seen their mother." "Almost 4 months," Thomas replied, not noticing how Catherine's expression hardened at his obvious happiness. "Sarah's promised no more extended shoots for a while. She wants to focus on the family." That evening, after the household had settled into sleep, Catherine sat in her apartment, surrounded by her wall of surveillance. 4 months of careful integration into the Reynolds family life threatened to unravel with Sarah's return. Her journal entry that night revealed her unraveling state of mind. "She can't just walk back in and reclaim what she abandoned. This is my family now. I've earned it." March 5th, Catherine began her endgame. Using the private photos she'd copied from Thomas's laptop, she created a detailed digital timeline of Sarah's absences over the past year. Every missed school event, every skipped family dinner, every postponed return was meticulously documented. She compiled it all into an email draft, her finger hovering over the send button as she imagined Sarah's industry contacts receiving evidence of her neglect. March 10th, the twins' excitement about their mother's return became unbearable for Catherine. During art time, when Samuel drew a welcome home mommy banner, she suggested they make it a surprise, and then accidentally spilled paint across his work. "We can make another one," she soothed, watching his tears with detached calculation. Sometimes things don't work out the way we plan. March 13th, Catherine made her first serious mistake. After the twins were asleep, she confronted Thomas in his study. "Have you really thought about what her return means?" she asked, dropping her professional demeanor entirely. "The disruption to the children's routine, the confusion. They've been thriving under our care. Yours and mine." Thomas looked up sharply at the word "our." "Catherine," he said firmly, "I think we need to discuss some boundaries. Sarah's return might be a good time to review your role here." The implied dismissal sent Catherine into a private fury. That night, she made 2 decisions. First, to send the damaging email about Sarah to several entertainment industry blogs. Second, to plan one final family dinner, a celebration that would become a confrontation. March 14th, Sarah Reynolds returned home to a family she barely recognized. The twins, subtly influenced by months of Catherine's careful manipulation, were simultaneously clingy and distant. Thomas, worried about Catherine's increasingly erratic behavior, but not wanting to alarm his wife, maintained a strained cheerfulness. And Catherine, watching it all from the kitchen as she prepared what she announced would be a special welcome home dinner for the following evening, began to put her final plan into motion. In her bag, alongside her usual nanny supplies, she placed a kitchen knife she'd selected days earlier. "Everything has to be perfect tomorrow night," she told her reflection as she applied Sarah's favorite shade of lipstick in the guest bathroom. "It will be our first real family dinner." In less than 24 hours, the facade would shatter completely, leading to the devastating scene that would greet first responders in the pre-dawn hours of March 15th. March 15th, 2024. The Reynolds estate glowed warmly against the darkening sky as Catherine Morris arrived for what she had announced would be a special welcome home dinner. She entered using her key for what she had decided would be either the last time or the first day of her new life. By 6 p.m., the scene appeared picture perfect. Catherine had prepared Sarah's favorite meal, an elaborate seafood pasta she'd learned from studying the family's photographs of past celebrations. The dining room table was set with the fine china reserved for special occasions. Candles cast a gentle glow across the polished surface. The twins, Sophia and Samuel, sat quietly at the table, their usual energy subdued by the strange tension they could sense but couldn't understand. Sarah occupied her usual place at one end, Thomas at the other, with Catherine insisting on joining them rather than eating separately as she usually did. To new beginnings, Catherine raised her glass, her eyes fixed on Thomas. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, noting how Catherine's outfit, a deep blue dress with pearl earrings, eerily mimicked her own style. Dinner proceeded with artificial pleasantries until 9:30 p.m., when Thomas suggested it was time for the twins to prepare for bed. "I'll take them," Catherine offered, but Sarah stood instead. "No," Sarah said firmly. "I've missed enough bedtimes. They're my children." The word "my" triggered something in Catherine. Her careful composure cracked. "Your children?" she asked, her voice taking on an edge that made Thomas tense. "Where were you when Samuel had nightmares for a week straight? When Sophia needed help with her science project? When Thomas worked late and needed someone to keep him company?" "Catherine," Thomas warned, standing, "that's enough." "No, it's not enough." Catherine's voice rose. "I've been here. I've been the one holding this family together while she chased fame on the other side of the world." Sarah, who had been guiding the twins toward the stairs, turned back. "Thomas, what's going on?" "Ask him about January," Catherine said, a cruel smile playing across her lips. "Ask him about the night in his study. Ask him who really understands him now." The next few moments exploded in chaos. Sarah sent the twins upstairs. Thomas attempted to explain, to defuse the situation. Catherine reached for her bag. The evening that began as a celebration dissolved into nightmare shortly before midnight. After the heated confrontation at dinner, Thomas had asked Catherine to leave. Instead, she retreated to the guest bathroom, emerging with a frighteningly calm demeanor that should have served as a warning. "I just need a moment to collect my things," she said quietly, moving toward the kitchen, where her bag sat beside the counter. Sarah, still processing Catherine's revelation about January, followed her while Thomas went to check on the twins upstairs. In the kitchen, Catherine's movements were precise, practiced. She reached into her bag, but instead of gathering her belongings, she pulled out the knife she'd carefully selected days before. Sarah, standing by the refrigerator, had just reached for a bottle of water when she saw the blade's reflection in the chrome door. The first swing missed as Sarah jumped back. The water bottle crashed to the floor, the sound drawing Thomas back downstairs. He rushed into the kitchen just as Catherine lunged again, this time grazing Sarah's arm. Catherine must move to intervene, but Catherine was faster. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the counter and swung. The impact caught Thomas on the temple, sending him crashing to the floor unconscious, blood beginning to seep from the wound. Sarah screamed, the sound piercing enough to wake the twins. Above, small feet scrambled across hardwood floors, followed by the slam and click of the bathroom door as Sophia and Samuel sought refuge. Catherine stood in the center of the kitchen, the knife still gripped in her hand. Blood, both Thomas's and Sarah's, stained the expensive marble countertop. The refrigerator door hung open, its light casting strange shadows across the scene. "Look what you made me do," Catherine whispered, her voice unnaturally calm. "This could have been so different. We could have been happy, Thomas, the twins, and me. We were happy while you were gone." Sarah, pressing herself against the counter, tried to reach her phone. Catherine noticed, lunging forward to snatch it away. The half-typed 911 call glowed on the screen before Catherine hurled the phone across the room. "You were never here." Catherine's voice trembled with a mixture of fury and desperation. "You were never here for any of them. I was here. I made their lunches. I kissed their scrapes better. I listened to Thomas's struggles. I loved them. I loved him. They were supposed to be mine." Sarah, seeing Thomas beginning to stir, knew she had to keep Catherine talking. "Catherine, please, think about the twins. Think about what this will do to them." The mention of the children sparked something in Catherine's eyes. For a moment, her grip on the knife wavered. That hesitation was all Sarah needed. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy copper pan from the drying rack, and swung with all her strength. The impact sent Catherine crashing into the glass front cabinet behind her. The sound of shattering glass filled the kitchen at 4:52 a.m., followed by an eerie silence broken only by the twins' muffled sobs from upstairs. Catherine lay amid the broken glass, the knife fallen from her grip, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. Sarah rushed to Thomas, who was now struggling to sit up, disoriented but alive. Upstairs, the twins remained safely locked in their bathroom, hands pressed against their ears just as they would be found when police arrived at 5:17 a.m. The night that began with a family dinner ended in the harsh glare of emergency lights as first responders flooded the Reynolds estate. Catherine Morris, her perfect facade finally shattered, like the cabinet she'd crashed through, was led away in handcuffs, still murmuring about the family that was supposed to be hers. Thomas and Sarah Reynolds survived their injuries. Their marriage, tested by distance and deception, would also survive. But the scars, both physical and emotional, would serve as a permanent reminder of how their search for help had invited in a nightmare, and how their perfect life had come so close to ending in tragedy. The investigation into the Reynolds case began even before Catherine Morris was processed at the Oak Valley Police Department. By dawn on March 15, 2024, Detective Laura Chen stood in Catherine's apartment, staring at what she would later describe in her report as a shrine to calculated obsession. The spare bedroom told the story that Catherine had been writing for months. One wall was covered entirely with photographs of Thomas Reynolds, some clearly taken from social media and company newsletters, others more disturbing. Thomas at lunch, Thomas in his car, Thomas playing with the twins in their backyard, all photographed without his knowledge. The level of surveillance was unprecedented, Detective Chen would later testify. She documented every aspect of their lives with an almost clinical precision. The investigation team discovered 13 notebooks, each meticulously dated and organized. The earliest, beginning in October 2023, appeared relatively normal: daily schedules, the twins' activities, household management notes. But by December, the entries had taken a darker turn. December 20th, 2023 entry. Sarah called today, 15 minutes on the phone with Thomas. He smiled twice. Forced. She doesn't deserve his smiles anymore. She doesn't deserve any of this. January 13th, 2024. The kiss changed everything. He feels it too. I know he does. Sarah is the only thing standing in our way, but not for long. Not for long. The digital forensics team uncovered even more disturbing evidence. Catherine had created elaborate spreadsheets tracking Sarah's movements, her filming schedule, even her phone calls home. She had set up fake social media accounts to monitor Sarah's activities and spread subtle rumors about supposed indiscretions on set. More alarming were the drafts of emails found on her laptop. Dozens of versions of a letter to Sarah, each more threatening than the last. The final draft, dated March 13th, 2024, laid out her delusional reality in chilling detail. "I've given them everything you couldn't. I've been the mother your children deserve, the wife Thomas needs. You can't just walk back in and reclaim what you threw away. They're mine now. They've been mine since you chose your career over your family." The investigation revealed that Catherine Morris wasn't even her real name. Fingerprint analysis identified her as Catherine Porter, a former elementary school teacher from Seattle. She had stolen the identity of Madison Blake, a deceased nanny, and spent 2 years building an impeccable false background. The level of premeditation was staggering. District Attorney Marcus Rodriguez explained at a press conference on March 20th. "This wasn't a crime of passion. Miss Porter spent years perfecting her false identity, months infiltrating the Reynolds family, and weeks planning the final confrontation." The search of Catherine's apartment also uncovered a hidden compartment containing files on 3 other wealthy families in the area. Each file contained detailed notes about the family's routines, photographs of their homes, and background information on their children. The discovery led to a broader investigation into whether Catherine had been planning similar infiltrations before targeting the Reynolds. Perhaps most chilling were the items found in a locked safe: a set of the Reynolds' house keys she'd duplicated without permission, several pieces of Sarah's jewelry that had been reported missing, and a folder containing draft custody papers. The documents, filled out but never filed, listed Catherine Morris as the twins' legal guardian in the event of their parents' death. She wasn't just planning to replace Sarah, Detective Chen explained. She was preparing for every contingency, including the possibility that both parents might not survive her final plan. The investigation would eventually reveal how Catherine had manipulated every aspect of her position to isolate and influence the family. She had deliberately misplaced letters the twins had written to Sarah, delayed messages about important school events, and slowly poisoned the children's perception of their mother's absence. As the evidence mounted, one thing became crystal clear. The violence of March 15th hadn't been a sudden break, but rather the culmination of a long, careful campaign to dismantle and replace a family that Catherine Porter had decided should be hers. The trial of Catherine Porter began on June 1st, 2024, in a packed Nevada courtroom. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: the detailed journals, the surveillance photos, the stolen identity, and the carefully crafted plan that had nearly destroyed the Reynolds family. Catherine sat motionless throughout the proceedings, her previously immaculate appearance now haunting in its institutional simplicity. Dr. Eleanor Matthews, the court-appointed psychiatrist, testified about Catherine's severe attachment disorder and delusional beliefs. Miss Porter didn't just want to be part of the Reynolds family, Dr. Matthews explained. In her mind, she had convinced herself she was the only one worthy of being Mrs. Reynolds, the only one capable of giving the children the mother they deserved. On July 15th, 2024, the jury took less than 4 hours to reach their verdict. Catherine Porter was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, aggravated assault, identity theft, and stalking. The judge, citing the extensive premeditation and the vulnerability of the children involved, sentenced her to 25 years to life. For the Reynolds family, the healing process proved more complicated than their physical recovery. The twins, deeply traumatized by that March night, required extensive therapy to process their feelings of betrayal and fear. Their therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, specialized in children who had experienced caregiver abuse. The greatest challenge, Dr. Chen would later write in a child psychology journal, was helping Sophia and Samuel understand that what happened wasn't their fault, that they hadn't betrayed their mother by caring for Catherine, and that it was okay to still miss the person they thought she was. Thomas and Sarah Reynolds emerged from the ordeal with a transformed perspective on their family life. Sarah turned down the leading role she'd been offered, choosing instead to focus on local theater productions that kept her close to home. Thomas restructured his company to allow for more flexible hours, prioritizing family dinner and bedtime stories over board meetings. We learned the hard way that success means nothing without family, Sarah shared in a rare interview 6 months after the trial. What Catherine exploited wasn't just my absence, it was our belief that we could outsource the most precious parts of our lives. The case led to significant changes in the domestic staffing industry. The Reynolds family worked with state legislators to pass the Safe Care Act, requiring enhanced background checks and psychological screening for all domestic workers with access to children. The law, adopted by several other states, became known informally as Catherine's Law. Oak Valley itself was forever changed. The community that once prided itself on its privacy and exclusivity learned valuable lessons about vigilance and connection. Neighbors began checking in on each other more frequently, and the local Parents Association established a support network for families with traveling parents. As for the Reynolds twins, they showed remarkable resilience. By the end of 2024, Sophia and Samuel were back at Oak Valley Academy, surrounded by friends and supported by a community that had learned its own hard lessons about trust and appearance. The Mediterranean mansion at 1154 Cypress Lane still stands, its security now subtly but significantly enhanced. The Reynolds family chose to stay, refusing to let Catherine Porter take anything more from them. They redesigned the kitchen where the final confrontation took place, transforming it into a warm, open space where they now spend their evenings together, healing old wounds with new memories. Their story serves as a cautionary tale about the shadows that can lurk behind perfect facades, the importance of protecting what matters most, and the strength of family bonds that, even when tested by betrayal and violence, can emerge stronger in their broken places. The Reynolds family survived their brush with darkness, but in quiet moments, when the evening sun casts long shadows through their windows, they remember how close they came to losing everything to a woman who nearly succeeded in stealing not just their lives, but their very identity as a family.